your questions, comments. Yes, please.
Complex question, but the stage two, where prophets are to just provide the message irrespective of what you will listen or not, but they provide the message. So, first surah of the Quran says, you got show me the path, right? Which means it's a equal responsibility of individuals to accept the message or not. Which can you talk about the free will that Allah has given us? Listen to the message or deny.
You see, this invitation that is extended by the messengers to the people belonging to the society that they are a part of is actually meant to enable all humans to exercise their free will properly. The reason why there are people who oppose the message of the messengers is that they are misusing their freedom. The entire rationale, the reason why humans are going to be rewarded and punished is because they have a free will. Uh, because we choose to do what is right and we choose to do what is wrong. Uh, that's what makes us accountable. So most certainly, I mean, when this invitation is extended, the invitation is doing nothing but making the decision making process for the individual uh, easier. Uh, the message is bringing them out of the haze, the smoke of confusion. As the Quran says, the darkness of misguidance towards the light of guidance. Minat sulumati ila nur. That's about it. It's all about the proper use of free will of the individual that is going to ultimately lead him or her to be on the right side or the wrong side.
I think as we understand his whenever a prophet is there is basically there is no free will on the day of faith. It is basically the result. If you are in times of you are not allowed to stay with your foot. You have to make a decision. You have to face the consequences. So during that time frame, yes, today it is, I agree. But during the prophet's time, the prophet
Was that your question as well? It's a different question. But
Different question, but overlap.
okay.
Not a critical.
No. I missed it. I'm sorry if I didn't properly address it.
Very well. We are saying it very well answered because that's what I want to understand.
Please pray that I'm also able to answer this question.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, I have sometimes made this statement, and I would want to repeat it in response to your question. There are, in a society where there is diversity, and there's always diversity. This world is a place where there are diverse people living, even taking it from a religious point of view. Now, what is the stance of a particular religious understanding regarding this diversity? There could be only three different possibilities. One is that your understanding is what could be described as pluralism, religious pluralism. In other words, what you think is that all religions are correct. And therefore, no matter whether you go take this path or this one or anyone, they all lead to the same ultimate destination. That's religious pluralism. I believe Islam does not stand for pluralism at all. That's number one. The other understanding is that you are an inclusivist. Now, religious inclusivism means that you believe that your point of view is correct, even though there is room for others too, right? So you can explain that others also can be accommodated. I believe, you can disagree, that Islam is inclusivist. Now comes the other statement. However, there was a time period when Islam, for a very short duration, was exclusivist. Exclusivism means that you believe that you have the truth with you and all others are damned. They're all misguided and they're all going to be punished by the Almighty. My understanding is that when the Prophet ﷺ came to this world and started delivering the message of the Almighty, after a few years of the beginning of this process, Islam became exclusivist. And it remained exclusivist for that particular society for some years, even after he left this world. In other words, anybody during that particular period who did not accept Islam was damned. But when things became unclear, hazy, confusing, why? Well, the Prophet was not there anymore. Muslims are Muslims, they are human beings. Our performance is not brilliant. Some are excellent, exceptional people. Others are hopelessly poor in their performance. So everything is mixed up. So therefore, if somebody who is not a Muslim and is doing well as best as he or she thinks is right, is honest, the person has a hope. And for my, according to my understanding, Islam for all people is inclusivist. That is, we are following the right understanding, but we don't say that others are completely gone. But you're right. At the time when the Quran was being revealed, uh, the Quran actually declared that anyone who does not accept is gone. So that during that period, Islam and the Quranic perspective was exclusivist. It is, you may not accept what I'm saying, but I'm just trying to clarify. It is because of this, call it confusion, because of this complexity, that most Muslims even today are exclusivists. I think we are trying to explain that is not the right understanding. It is not, what people say. Whenever I tell people that, there are many non-Muslims who are not at fault, and therefore they cannot be described as kuffar. You know what they say? They say, is not Quran available everywhere? Is it not there in the internet? Can people not access it? Well, I just look at their faces, because beyond that, I have got nothing to say. No. In other words, I cannot explain to them that, man, had I been a non-Muslim, I would have had no idea that this Quran is the Almighty's book, given that it's actually the book of the Muslims. And the kind of performance which Muslims are showing, well, not all, but many of them, it is anything but ideal. So what I'm trying to say is, what makes a message perfectly ideal is two things: the text and the Prophet. Put together is what the Quran describes as bayyina, absolutely clear. And one of them is missing, well, then it's not complete.
Thank you very much for clarifying. But I think I will take my statement, and I think I will give a quick statement. What I should be trying to say is that during the time of somebody there.
डॉक्टर खालिद साहब, ये जो
अभी आपकी बारी आती है, अभी आती है।
नहीं, आप उनका क्वेश्चन को अभी आप जो उन्होंने क्वेश्चन किया वो ही बता देना।
Okay. Well, my idea was that sometimes the answer can tell you what the question was. This is the Quranic style, but I'll do it now. I'm sorry. Right.
So
Thank
when
you.
the statement
Thank
changed, let's say later, free will exists during the time of the prophet, but you will immediately face the consequence of utilizing your free will, exercising your free will during the time. Today, you are still having a free will, but you are not facing the consequences right away. You will
Right.
delay to the day of judgment.
Right.
Sorry.
But Faisal, have you heard this question?
No, hardly audible.
No, the question is that, the good thing about this is that people would know whether I've understood the question properly. The question is that today we have a free will and we exercise it. And, for as long as we are alive, everybody has the right to do it. But at the time of the messengers, even though they were exercising their free will, uh, they were punished for doing it. In other words, they did not have a right to use their free will other than in the right manner. Is it okay? Is it a fair mention?
They had a free will, we had a free will.
Right.
The only thing is that today we have a time till our death.
Right.
We face the consequences whatever I have done.
After.
If the profit is there, then whatever choice I make, I will face the consequence, good or bad. That is the only.
Right. When the profit is there, the free will exercised will see its consequences. You are right, but not completely. I'll tell you why. And probably it's an afterthought. I've already mentioned about this idea of mine that Islam was exclusivist during the time of the Prophet and a few years later. And that explains another point. That explains why there is this mention that the one who leaves Islam is to be killed. It was at that time. Because the one who accepted Islam just to dodge, to deceive, to save his skin, and then later went back, he will face the same punishment, which is to be given to the people who reject the faith. So what you're saying is right. But why I said that not completely, I'll tell you. I'll give you two examples. I'm very fond of giving these two examples. The example of Umar and the example of Khalid bin Walid raziyallahu anhu. For a fairly long time, in case of one, for 6 years, and in case of the other, for 18 years, the two immensely, hugely important individuals in the history of Islam, they exercised their free will and did not accept Islam. So, in other words, in order for the Almighty to implement His decisions, even at the time when the messenger is there, He obviously exercises all the wisdom and allows people enough opportunity. Interestingly, when it was ultimately declared that these people are not going to be spared anymore, and there was a decision taken, and it was announced that beyond a certain deadline, and the deadline was of 50 days. That is, as soon as these sacred months lapse, faqtulul mushrikeen haysu saqiftumu. Kill these polytheists wherever you find them. That was the divine punishment coming in the form of the military might of the Muslims. That was declared. This is Surah Tawbah. A surah, by the way, which it was decided by some people that it should be taken out of the syllabus of Muslims because it talks about these possibilities of Muslims killing others. Well, it should be explained properly, and there's no reason for it. If you don't explain properly, well, I can see the problem. So, this is another matter. But what I'm saying is, after the mention of the possibility of people getting killed, in verse number 6, the Almighty says, however, if there is somebody who asks for your protection and says, I have not heard the Quran. I don't know what you're talking about. Take him to a place of safety and read out the Quran to him and leave him there. And then the Quran says, you know why? Zalika bi'annahum qawmun la ya'lamun. Because these are the people who don't know. In other words, this punishment was to be given to those people who knew, and Allah knows that they knew, and yet they did not exercise their free will properly. So, yes, we are also using our free will and we are at liberty to decide rightly or wrongly. They were also using their free will, but beyond a certain deadline, their use of free will in a way that was incorrect was punished. So you're right. That's the difference in the case of those people and us. But the Almighty did it because He tells us that the people who were thus punished for not using their free will correctly knew well that the message they were receiving was, was from the Almighty, and that if they are not accepting it, they are at fault. And they were properly, adequately warned before they were ultimately punished. The time is over. Therefore, I beg leave. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.